Researchers put two people through the exact same painful experience. Same intensity, same duration. One suffered enormously, the other barely suffered at all. The difference had nothing to do with the pain itself. What if most of your suffering isn't coming from what's actually happening to you, but from something happening inside you that you've never been taught to see? Today, we are going to look at the exact psychological mechanism that creates suffering, why it works the way it does, and what you can practically do to reduce it. Not eliminate pain, that's not the goal. Reduce suffering. Those are two very different things, and by the end of this, you'll know exactly why. In the 1990s, a construction worker in the UK stepped on a nail that drove straight through his boot. He was in agony. Screaming, couldn't be touched, had to be sedated before doctors could help him. When they finally removed the boot, they found the nail had passed cleanly between his toes. It hadn't touched him at all. His nervous system had generated enormous suffering from a threat that didn't physically exist. Pain researcher Lorimer Moseley has spent decades studying cases like this, and his conclusion is uncomfortable. The brain doesn't detect damage, it produces pain as a signal, and that signal can be amplified or reduced based entirely on what the mind believes is happening. Now, here's where it gets interesting. The Vedic texts, some of the oldest psychological literature on the planet, made a similar distinction thousands of years before neuroscience had the tools to prove it. They separated pain, which they called a physical sensation, from suffering, which they described as a mental event. Two completely different things. Pain is the nail, suffering is what the mind does with the nail. Tara Brach, the psychologist and meditation teacher, puts it this way: suffering equals pain multiplied by resistance, not pain plus resistance, multiplied. That word matters because it means even a small amount of resistance can take a manageable pain and make it enormous. And it means that reducing resistance, even slightly, can cut suffering dramatically without the external situation changing at all. This isn't spiritual optimism. This is documented in pain research, in trauma therapy, in cognitive behavioral psychology. The same event produces wildly different levels of suffering depending on the mental relationship the person has with it. So, the first thing to understand about how to stop suffering is this: you are not trying to change your circumstances, you are trying to change your relationship with them. The Vedic framework breaks suffering into three categories, not to be academic about it, but because knowing which type you're dealing with changes how you work with it. The first is suffering that comes from your own mind, anxiety about the future, guilt about the past, the story you tell yourself about why you're not enough, why things will never change, why you're uniquely broken. This is the category most people are least honest about because it requires admitting that the source of the pain is internal. Modern psychology calls this rumination. The ancient texts called it the most dangerous of the three because it has no external limit. The mind can generate this kind of suffering indefinitely without any outside help. The second is suffering caused by other people. Betrayal, cruelty, neglect. This one is real and it shouldn't be minimized. The teaching here is not that other people don't hurt you, they do. The teaching is that your continued suffering after the event is still happening inside you, and that means it's still within your reach to work with. The third is suffering caused by forces outside any human control. Illness, natural disaster, loss, the death of someone you love. This is the category that breaks most people's frameworks because it's genuinely unfair. There's no one to blame, no lesson that makes it okay, no reframe that makes it not hurt. And yet, and this is the hard part, the research consistently shows that even here, resistance amplifies the suffering beyond what the event itself requires. This isn't about toxic positivity. It's about the difference between grief and torture. Grief moves, it flows, it is the natural response to real loss. Torture is what happens when we fight the grief itself, when we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel it, or that feeling it means something is permanently wrong. All three types of suffering share one amplifier: the mind's insistence that things should be different from how they are. That's the mechanism. That's the thing we're actually working with. Here's the core teaching, and I want to be precise about it because it's widely misunderstood. The Vedic texts teach that suffering is not caused by desire itself. It's caused by the mind's grip on a specific outcome, the demand that reality conform to what we want. There's a difference between wanting something and being attached to it. You can want a relationship to work out. Attachment is when your sense of safety, identity, and peace become completely dependent on it working out in a specific way. That's when desire becomes suffering. Psychologists call this outcome dependence, when your emotional state is entirely tied to whether a specific thing happens. You've handed control of your inner world to something outside you. And since the outside world is not under your control, you've essentially guaranteed suffering. Now, here's what makes this teaching difficult. The mind doesn't experience attachment as a problem, it experiences it as love or dedication or caring deeply, which is why most people never question it. But there's a test. Ask yourself, can I want this and still be okay if it doesn't happen? Not happy about it, not indifferent to it, just okay, functional, grounded, still moving. If the answer is no, that's attachment, and that's where the suffering is being generated. Resistance is the same mechanism applied to what's already happened. Attachment is about the future. Resistance is about the present or the past. It's the mind's refusal to accept that something is the way it is. And the paradox, documented in both ancient philosophy and modern acceptance based therapy, is that resistance doesn't change what is, it only adds suffering on top of it. ACT, acceptance and commitment. Therapy is one of the most well researched psychological approaches of the last 30 years. Its central finding is almost identical to what the Vedic texts described, that psychological flexibility, the ability to hold difficult experiences without fighting them, is the single strongest predictor of mental health, not positive thinking, not the absence of pain. Flexibility in the face of pain. The teaching is not that you should want less, it's that you should hold what you want more lightly. This is where most wisdom traditions lose people, because they jump from the diagnosis to something that sounds like spiritual bypassing. Just accept everything. Surrender to what is. It sounds passive, it sounds like giving up. It's not. Here's the distinction that matters. Acceptance, in the psychological sense, doesn't mean you approve of something. It doesn't mean you stop working to change it. It means you stop spending energy fighting the fact that it currently exists, because that fight is where the extra suffering lives. Think of it this way: you're in quicksand. The instinct is to struggle, to fight your way out, but struggling in quicksand makes you sink faster. The counterintuitive move is to stop fighting, spread your weight, and then, from a stable position, carefully work your way out. Acceptance is not sinking, it's stopping the struggle so you can actually move. The Vedic texts offer a specific practice for this. It's not meditation. Though meditation helps, it's the practice of witnessing, learning to observe your own mental states without being completely consumed by them. Psychologists call this metacognition, the ability to think about your own thinking, to notice I am feeling anxious rather than just being anxiety. This gap between the experience and the observer of the experience is where freedom lives. It's small at first, almost imperceptible, but it grows with practice. Here's a concrete way to build this. When you notice suffering, not pain, but the mental amplification of pain, try naming it out loud or in writing. There is fear here. There is grief here. There is resistance here. Not I am afraid, not I am broken. There is fear here. The language creates a tiny separation between you and the state. That separation is the beginning of the practice. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that this act of labeling emotional states, what he called affect labeling, measurably reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. The ancient practice of witnessing turns out to have a direct neurological mechanism. Naming what you feel without judgment literally calms the nervous system. This is how to stop suffering, not by eliminating the source of pain, but by changing the mind's relationship with it, one moment at a time. Everything we've covered so far is a set of practices for acute moments, when suffering is happening and you need something to work with right now. But the deeper teaching is about building a mind that generates less suffering by default. The Vedic texts describe this as developing what they call equanimity. And before you write that off as a spiritual word, let me tell you what it actually means in practice. It means a stable baseline, not happiness, not indifference, stability, a mind that can be moved by circumstances without being destroyed by them, a mind that can feel grief without becoming grief, that can feel fear without being ruled by fear. This is built slowly through repeated small acts of not feeding the resistance. Every time you notice resistance and choose not to add more mental fuel to it, not suppressing it, just not elaborating on it, not building the story further, you are training the nervous system toward equanimity. It's not dramatic, it doesn't feel like progress in the moment, but it compounds. Modern psychology has a term for this: distress tolerance, the capacity to be in a difficult state without making it worse. DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, is built almost entirely around developing this capacity, and it's one of the most effective therapeutic approaches for people with severe emotional suffering. The core skill is the same one the ancient texts described: the ability to be with what is without adding resistance. The longer game also involves questioning the stories you carry about suffering itself. Many people have an unconscious belief that suffering means something, that it signals how much they care, or that it's the appropriate response to how hard their life has been. Some people are afraid that if they suffer less, they'll care less, that they'll become cold, or that they'll be betraying their pain. But equanimity doesn't make you care less. It makes you more capable of acting from that care. Suffering, when it becomes chronic and overwhelming, actually narrows you. It reduces your capacity to respond, to connect, to help. A mind that suffers less is not a mind that feels less. It's a mind that can do more with what it feels. This is the full arc of how to stop suffering, or more accurately, how to stop generating the suffering that isn't required. The pain that life brings is real. The extra layer that the mind adds on top of it is optional. And that optional layer is something you can actually work with. If anything in this video landed for you, the best thing you can do right now is subscribe. We put out a new video every week on exactly this kind of material: practical psychology, ancient wisdom, no fluff. And if you have questions about anything we covered today, the three types of suffering, the attachment mechanism, the witnessing practice, anything, drop them in the comments below. I read every single comment and I reply to as many as I can. Your question might become the next video. Finally, I put together a free daily mind reset kit. It's a simple daily framework built around the principles we talk about on this channel. The link is in the description. It takes about 10 minutes a day, and it's the closest thing I've found to a maintenance routine for the mind. Go check it out.